Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel. This is my review for Artemis Fowl, which is directed by Kenneth Branagh, is the latest film adaptation of another young adult novel series, and the latest film that was supposed to be released in theaters, but because of the pandemic, was moved to streaming, and in this case, it's Disney+. This movie takes place in a world where these mythological creatures like fairies, goblins, trolls, and dwarves live in a sort of science fiction world underground from Earth. And the main focus is on this 12-year-old boy named Artemis Fowl Jr., who is the son of Artemis Fowl Sr., played by Colin Farrell, who is essentially a criminal mastermind. So his father gets kidnapped, and Artemis Fowl Jr. has to try to figure out what exactly happened. And in the middle of all this, he teams up with a dwarf and a fairy, and it's pretty much a giant race to recover a long-lost artifact that the Fowl family had stolen from the fairies. So this is a movie that was actually supposed to be released in theaters originally, and not just in theaters, but last year, in August of 2019. But because of reshoots, the movie got pushed to May of 2020, and because of the world going to shit right now, the movie got pushed to this month here and got dumped onto Disney+, completely skipping a theatrical release. And when I say that they dumped this movie, I mean they dumped it, because this movie is not good. I mean, let me first say that I didn't really expect this movie to be all that good. In fact, there were several occasions where I totally forgot that this movie existed, because we've had this trend happen throughout the years where big studios try to take a young adult series that is heavy on science fiction or fantasy and try to adapt it into the next big film series. And it worked out for Hunger Games. I mean, worked well in the sense that all the books got adapted, even though the ending was just terrible. But it didn't work out for so many other series or books, like the Divergent series, Wrinkle in Time, and The Darkest Minds. And when The Darkest Minds came out, I thought that would be the nail in the coffin for this genre. But with Artemis Fowl, apparently Hollywood wanted to try this one more time. And Artemis Fowl might actually be the very worst of the young adult science fiction fantasy movie adaptations. This movie feels like everyone involved with it was sleepwalking. There was no actual determination or creativity put in this movie. Because just basing what I saw with this movie, it seems like the source material took the idea that Harry Potter had, where it brought these magical creatures into a modern setting, and instead placed it in a science fiction element, sort of similar to Star Wars. But with this movie, it's not executed well at all. And I don't know if it's either studio interference, Kenneth Branagh's really bad direction, or the script, because this is just tired, it's lazy, and there are some points in this movie that will just make you go, wait, what? Before doing this review, I actually tried to think of something to say about this movie that is indeed good. And unfortunately, the things that you would normally give this movie praise for are not all that good. The world building is totally rushed. A lot of the special effects in this movie are absolutely terrible, considering that Disney spent $125 million on this movie. And the big world where all the fairies live in underground, it just looks like the inside of the anthill from DreamWorks Ants. Like, it's not all that impressive. And there are just so many cliches and tropes that we've seen before in other better movies. For example, there's a troll that appears in this movie, and it reminded me very much of the troll from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Right down to the point where the CG on the troll is just atrocious. And again, for a movie with this type of budget, it's kind of inexcusable. And the cast is just very questionable as well. The actor that plays Artemis Fowl Jr., Ferdia Shaw, is just terrible. This kid is supposed to be a criminal mastermind, and he is supposed to be smarter than everyone else in the room. But when you watch this kid, you don't get the impression at all. And it really doesn't help that when we're first introduced to this character, all we know about him is basically told through narration. We're never once shown how he is a genius, or how he's so much smarter than anyone else around him. And for a character with such a distinct trait, you can't explain that through dialogue. It has to be through what we see him do. And the narration of this movie is done by Josh Gad, who plays basically the world's tallest dwarf, as in he's really just a regular-sized person. but a dwarf. I do not know what they were trying to do with this character, because his voice, it sounds like Abed Nadir from Community impersonating Batman. And when we're first introduced to this character, and when we hear him giving his narration, this is supposed to be a serious type character, but you just can't help but laugh, because all you're thinking about is Community. And when it comes to Dame Judi Dench, I don't know if she just has a terrible agent at the moment, or she just gave up entirely, because between this and Cats, she is really picking some very questionable roles. When she first pops up, with those fairy ears and that hairstyle, I just sat there and went, oh no, oh no, not Dame Judi Dench. And I can't decide if she's embarrassing herself here more than she did in Cats, because like Josh Gad, she's also doing a ridiculous voice that you're supposed to take seriously, but you can't. And then the story itself, it just makes no damn sense at all. When it first starts out, it's just kind of mumbling through it. Like I said, the introductions for Artemis Fowl as a character are in the situation of telling rather than showing. And when we're introduced to this massive fairy world, it feels like it's a completely different movie. And it's not until Artemis meets this fairy named Holly Short that these two worlds kind of collide. Because everything beforehand is just a complete mess, and the story, again, is just completely nonsensical. And there's no real climax at the end of the movie. It never feels like there's any major conflict. Nothing truly gets resolved at the end that was considered important, and the movie ends on a cliffhanger. After the Golden Compass and The Last Airbender, I thought we were beyond the point of setting up a sequel to a movie that may or may not be a financial success, and in this film's case, it is clearly not a financial success. Or who knows, maybe if the number of views on Disney Plus are enough, then it could be a financial success, but considering that a lot of people kind of forgot this movie exists, that's rather doubtful. So the movie is just terrible on all accounts. And like I said earlier, this might in fact be the worst adaptation of a young adult novel. But the only thing that's keeping me from giving it my lowest rating is that there's never really anything that offended me in this movie. It never made me angry, because it just kind of follows the same tropes that we've seen in all these other movies beforehand. So just don't waste your money on this, or since it's a Disney Plus exclusive now, just don't waste your time. There really is no reason to watch this movie. Okay, you know what? I can't lie. There is actually one reason to watch this movie, and it's not really worth watching the entire movie, but it's just one scene that is probably better seen out of context. But then again, this movie is so confusing that even seeing the scene within context would still be confusing. What I want you guys to do is go to Disney Plus, select Artemis Fowl, and just jump ahead to 56 minutes and 30 seconds in the movie. Just watch that little moment right there, and I will not take any responsibility for what you have witnessed, because that one scene right there that I'm talking about, that I will not spoil on this review, kind of goes to show you how terrible this movie can be. Just trust me. And again, I do not take responsibility. And there you go, that's my review for Artemis Fowl. And now I want to know what you guys think about the movie. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, leave a comment, support my Patreon page, follow me on social media. And until then, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.